Hello, today we're going to paint a wheel.
Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make the wheels look better, and we don't want to spend a fortune doing it. We're on a gravel drive, it's on a bit of an incline, so we're not in an ideal situation, but we've got the car jacked up. We're going to take the wheel off, but you've got to make sure, in our case, certainly on any sort of incline, that the handbrake's on and the wheels are all chocked so that they can't roll back anywhere. Let's get that wheel off. So all we're going to use today is an electric drill, some attachments, some wire brush attachments to go in the electric drill, and a wire brush. So the first thing we're going to do is use the wire brush to get all the loose rust off. Give it a good old scrub all the way around, as far into the nooks and crannies as you can. You can do lots of things with wheels. You can have them be blasted and painted. You can send them be powder coated. They can be wrapped. But we don't want to spend a fortune, do we? So we're just spending a few quid and just doing this with a rattle can. Now we've got to get all the dust off the wheel. We've got the worst off with a wire brush. We're going to put one of the wire brush attachments into the drill. We're going to go around quite aggressively. This wheel is quite rusty, and we're not going to remove all the pits that the rust has made, but we want to get rid of the rust inside the pits. So all the big flat surfaces we'll use this, and then to get down in the nooks and crannies we change the wire brush, and we're using this larger flat wheel so we can get around the inside of the rim and do a little bit more detail wire brushing. So that's it so far. Happy with that, I think. We're happy, aren't we? Yeah, we're happy. I've got a thumbs up. Now we're just going to wash the wheel off. We've got a bucket of soapy water, not too much soap, and hand soap. You don't want to use a soap that's got any salt in it on a wheel that you've just stripped the paint off. The wheel's got to be completely dry now before you put any paint on it. So, as again, I'm lucky enough to have compressed air. You can wipe it round with just a dry sponge or some tissue paper. But the best course of action is to find some sunlight, a cup of tea, and somewhere to sit. Now we want to make a mask to mask off the majority of the tyre. 2 bits of newspaper, masking tape together so that they make sure that the mask is going to be big enough to cover all the way around the tyre. Place the 2 bits of newspaper tape together over the top of the tyre, and then we're just going to put a little bit of masking tape in 4 places just to hold it on top of the tyre while we cut it out so it doesn't blow away. We want to cut out the middle bit, and we're just going to use a Stanley blade, but any blade or any sharp object will do. Push it down up against the rim of the wheel, making sure you don't go down so far that we've slashed the tyre, and gently and carefully work a way around to cut out a circle. And of course repair any tears you've made in the paper in the process. Carefully removing the mask so that we can use it again for the other 3 wheels. Store it somewhere where it doesn't go blowing off down the road. And now we're going to mask around the edge. Deliberately left the wheel weight on. Taking the wheel weight off normally means that when you go and put it back on again, even if you bend the tang down, at some point it's going to part company with the wheel again. So there's nothing wrong with our tyres. They're nicely well balanced. There's no point in taking the weight off. We'll just leave it on there. If you're going to change the tyre anyway, then fine, but there's no need to in this case. And then lastly, we're just going to wrap some masking tape around the tyre valve. Retrieve our expertly made tyre mask, put it back on the tyre, just hold it down again with the masking tape, and remove to your pre-prepared painting area, or front garden as we call it. And now the best bit, we're going to start painting. I'm using etch primer, obviously you could use just normal primer, and now the primer goes on the wheel. Luckily it's not a windy day, otherwise this would be an exercise in painting all the neighbours' cars as well. So we're putting a fair amount of paint on at a bit of an angle, about 8 inches away from the wheel, and just keeping the can moving all the time so we don't get any paint runs anywhere. So we waited, we didn't use any artificial heat, we waited about 10 minutes, made sure that was touch dry, and now we're only using 1 coat of primer, and now we're going to put 2 coats of top coat. So same process with the primer. We're lucky we can just leave it to dry, sit down, have a cup of tea, and we'll just wait for the paint to go touch dry again. Second top coat, we're going to put a little bit more paint on now to get a bit more shine to it, a bit more depth to it, and making sure we're getting down right into the wheel well, and making sure everything has got a nice coating of black shiny paint. We're not going for a smooth finish. I think I might have said before, we're just looking to make sure the wheels look a lot better than they did. And now we're going to carefully take the mask off because we want to use it again, and pulling it up and away from the paint. And remove the masking tape and give yourself a good pat on the back because you've got no paint on the tyre. If you did get paint on the tyre, it actually isn't the end of the world. It's quite easy to get off rubber if it hasn't dried for days on end. And here is the painted wheel, which we're all quite happy with here. If you wanted to get rid of all the pitting and make it a smooth surface, as I think I said earlier, that's a bit more involved, and we don't want to spend the time on that, we don't want to spend the money on that. We're just making it look a lot better than it was. That's the entire object of the exercise. And now we're going to put the wheel back on the car so we can see the old versus new effect against the rear wheel. Later on we did paint the wheel nuts, because they stood out a bit too much, but for now they're just going on as they are. And tighten the wheels up with a torque wrench. It doesn't look like a torque wrench from here, I know, but if you just stop and listen very carefully you can hear the click. You hear the click? That's what I'm doing. So there you have it, old versus new. Maybe 30 minutes a wheel, not including jacking the car up and taking them all off and waiting for the paint to dry and goodness knows how many cups of tea. But I think for a budget, for an easy fix, that looks pretty good. So there you have it. Thank you very much for watching. If you have watched, I'm frankly amazed. It's the first one we've done. We've had some good fun doing it actually. Hopefully we'll get better. But thanks very much again, and we look forward to the next one. Bye.